The buzz on the spin. There is a rushing of water that sounds almost like a high wind in response to Chaziz's knocking, and the door flies open. Smoky purple fluids drift through the water at them, and when they hit the atmosphere around Chaziz and Hoagie reverts to a fine powder before dropping to land either on their clothing or falling back into the water. "You're lucky I'm in a good mood, girl. Who are you and what do you want?" a smoky voice says from the room beyond. "This is Daniel Eastman of Station Administration. I'm in charge of the affairs in Section 4. You've raised a series of non-specific complaints and I'm here to get further details," Hoagie says in a strong and carrying tone. "Wait, you're one of the— Hold on, enter," Sandsifter calls out as there's a sort of shifting sound. "What is this stuff? Everything's all wet so I can't really tell," Chaziz asks as she leads the way in and can't see a thing through the polluted and tainted water. "Oh, honestly, haven't you ever had fun?" Sandsifter demands. "Strange time to have fun," Hoagie says neutrally as he brings some of the powder and very, very gently sniffs it. The smell takes him a moment to place. It's clearly an extract from several types of purple blooming flower. To him they smelled sweet, but it was the local equivalent of opium, especially to those with insect or crustacean biology. "Chaziz, this stuff is dream petal extract." "I know, it's some of the good stuff too." "I have never seen you or any of the girls playing with this stuff," Hoagie remarks. We stopped a few years back. We needed to get the hive built and selling it gave us that. By the time we were done it, woo, this is good shit," Chaziz explains and sort of starts to drift. Hoagie grabs her around the ankle and pulls her close. "Oh, shit, I'm high," Chaziz says with a certain buzz to her wings. He pats her twice on the thigh to let her know he understands. She's lying. She's fine. The little ladies are surprisingly cunning even when they're aggressive as all get out. "Just hang on," he says, and positions her to hang on to his back. "I do apologize for being unprepared for this meeting. I honestly did not expect you to arrive for at least another day or so. I only sent the reports in several hours ago," Sandsifter says, still concealed by the sheer amount of dream petal extract tainting the water. "Let's clear the currents between us, shall we?" A rushing sensation pushes in, and a containment barrier similar to the one that Hoagie and Chaziz are using passes through the chamber. The purple pollution falls to the floor as a powder and Sandsifter is revealed. This is the closest Hoagie's ever been to one of her species. She looks like a woman wearing body armor with a pair of massive claw-shaped gauntlets. Dry Atmo totems to get around an underwater area? Clever, I guess. But you know, not all buildings and supports are designed to take proper weight. A lot of floors exist only as a courtesy, and a means to chop up more space so it can be rented out individually. Right, well, moving on. You mentioned destabilizing issues, massive product issues, security issues, and, well, to be frank, it looks like you just ticked every box you could and sent in a complaint. "So, the hell is going on?" Hoagie asks, and she chuckles as she rises up, stark naked and clearly not giving a shit, and walks into the next room. Hoagie takes 2 steps when the floor straight up gives away under him and he falls clean through it. Thankfully, Chaziz stops his fall and pulls him up. "How heavy are you?" Sandsifter demands. 90 kilograms. He's a bit on the lower side due to his gear, but not by too much. "You do not look like you weigh 90 kilograms, she states. "I'm human. Putting aside the obvious jokes, we're a very dense species." "You're nearly twice the weight," she adds in, and Chaziz carries him through the room to the edge. "You know you're actually doing me a real solid here. I didn't expect anything even approaching this level of promptness to dealing with the problems around here. Minasai may be the owner of the station, but she's about as hands-off as things get." Madam. I am literally too heavy for this level and can't breathe here without help. The sooner you can tell me what's wrong, the sooner I can deal with it, then leave." Hoagie says as he uses the door frame as a solid place to stand. "This room's reinforced, you can come in," she says as she flops down onto what seems to be a combination of couch and bed and dais. "Now that we've left that lovely tasting room, shall we get to business?" Hoagie takes a few steps, measuring them carefully and sensing that things aren't quite right. There's a seam in the floor that is probably very easy to miss with a lot of water. This room opens into something. "Yes, indeed, you're having issues with Sector 4. I'm authorized and heavily invested in making sure Sector 4 is working well with the rest of the station. What is wrong, and what would you call an agreeable solution?" "Oh, it's rather simple. You see, there are numerous checks and balances here within Sector 1. I won't bore you with the details, but the delicate balance of supply and demand has been thoroughly thrown off kilter. Many women are going to be hurting themselves and going through terrible, terrible times because of it. While I've certainly profited in the short term, I will soon be drowning in dreamy waves." "An influx of drugs. Got it. Which means the supply has gone up a lot. Which means someone in Sector 4 has been growing the local equivalents of weed to such an extent they've glutted the market. That's almost impressive. It's not the berserkers. We got out of Dream Petal years ago. It's very unstable stuff. The moment the wrong girl gets a taste, she goes crazy for it, and then she gets others like herself into it, and it gets worse and worse until before you know it, half the girls walking or flying around or bouncing off walls or tripping on nothing. Then just as fast as it all kicks off, it stops when they switch to harder stuff like Giggle Rock and Happy Waves, and then they usually start overdosing or forgetting to eat. Yes, and with half of my organization overindulging on Dream Petal at the best of time, it's only a matter of time until some of the girls decide that they want a better high, and we end up with a burnt-out corpse floating through the currents, spreading a sickening taste laced with just enough to get some other poor bitch hooked into a new poison." Sandsifter adds to Chaziz's explanation, and Hoagie nods. "So basically, you want me to lean on someone supplying the weed and telling them to cut back on it?" "Yes, it's so cheap right now that everyone's overindulging. Including you," Chaz's challenges and receives a glare from the crab woman. "No. I know my limits. I don't go past them. I was just bringing down my excitement after letting loose, and then you showed up days ahead of schedule. I hope you didn't scare little Arno too much. He has serious commitment issues, but he's fantastic with his claws," Sandsifter says, and Hoagie holds up his hands. "He's fine. Although he clearly expected things to go wrong when Chaz's started banging on the door, so he left in a hurry." Hoagie explains, and Chaz's shrugs. "Right so." Sandsifter begins when there's a big bang of someone slamming a door open. "If you could step more to the sides, please, it's business time." Hoagie raises an eyebrow but takes 2 big steps to the left and gets a nod in return as someone starts cursing and swearing up and down. Sandsifter smirks at that, and she ignores the questioning glance sent her way by Hoagie, even as she picks up a robe and wraps it around herself loosely. Another set of doors open, and an AKA flops into the room before dragging herself forward a bit and glaring up at Sandsifter. "Pull back on the drugs. Do you have any idea what that will—" She begins to rant before the floor opens up at the press of a button. The AKA immediately screams in panic and hauls herself up and out of the hole before rolling to the side. Are you thinking a little more clearly now? Perhaps if you stopped indulging in your own damn product, you'd be able to tell that it's a bad idea to outright poison customers, and you'd remember that Mr. Tentacles has been dead for 3 years now. I thought you got a replacement. I did, but it takes years to train a Lavathy spine squid to only eat the people directly above or within its enclosure and not snatch up everyone else, Sandsifter says, and Hoagie just starts applauding. Wonderful entertainment. Your professional fool is clearly skilled. Now, if we can go back to the issues of the glut of drugs, do you have any more information for me? I can definitely slow down the supply of raw materials, but that can be done a lot more efficiently if you tell me the sources. Otherwise, I'm going from area to area on the biodeck and through hydroponic farm after hydroponic farm, which will slow things down a lot. Hoagie remarks, and Sand Sifter claps her claws together. My, I think I'm starting to like you humans. You're not bad for air breathers. I have a list. Go over and have a talk with them and I'll clean things up on my end. I may be small time compared to some of the gun runners and other girls, but I've got a good grip on a lot of the chemicals. Excellent. There's going to be some grumbling, but if I can get them to look at things 5 years from now rather than 5 days, I should be able to sort things out. Right. Well, that's not all of it. I'm going to need your help with something else, Sand Sifter says. You can't just cut off a whole sector from their dream drifts, the AKA exclaims. She's got a very silvery scale pattern and has just enough leverage on the fins to sort of stand. Not alone, no. But if I can convince my honored competition into throttling back as well, we might be able to stop girls from waking up in turbines or accidentally spacing themselves when they think they've swum home. Sand Sifter says, reaching up and drawing the air quotes with her claws. There's more to this, and if you want me to help more than the bare minimum, you're going to tell me why. I will throttle back on production, but if you want me to do more, you're going to have to tell me more, Hoagie says. More? Why does it matter so much to you? This pattern is well established, and the biggest law on this station is consequences. Because inaction has consequences as well. If I let such a huge amount of my customer base and my own women overdose and die, I'm being thrown into the pot to boil. Yes, human, I know how your kind tend to eat crustaceans. Was that some kind of backwards threat or a flirt? Chazzy asks after a moment. What indeed? Sand Sifter says. She's clearly not giving out any more information, so Hoagie just sighs and bids her good day as the AKA starts to try and argue. He walks out and sticks near the walls to cross the next room. Chazzy says nothing until they're outside. Bitch is lying like a rug, she says the moment the door closes behind them. Yes, but how is she lying is the question. Is she just leaving something out? Lying directly or implying things that aren't happening? Who knows? All I know right now is that it is a legit problem to have too many drugs in any community, let alone a criminal one. We have enough idiots around without people making themselves dumber on purpose. No kidding. Still what? Chazzy begins before something blocks out a nearby light and they both turn to regard the massive figure in the water. A Lydris holding a large variety of spears. Oh, do I get to fight? Chazzy asks as she hovers up. The water may clean them off, but getting some bloodshed will be just... There's a pulse of axiom from the Lydris that scrambles the containment of the air bubbles around Chazzy and Hawagi in an instant. They go from dry and breathing fine to suddenly under tons of icy cold water with their atmospheres rushing away in massive streams of bubbles. Chazzy instantly starts to sink as her blades and chains start dragging her struggling form deeper into the depths. Hoagie is instantly swimming after her, even as he feels his axiom brand start to awaken. The water departs him, and he manages, barely, to grab onto Chazzy and extend the field over her as he begins to fall. Without the water to provide resistance, he went from swimming to falling in a second.